Hello, this is Political Forum for Wednesday, December 4th, 2013. We welcome today as our special guest State Senator Kimberly Lightford from the 4th District. I'm Rod Joy, a board member here at CAN TV. Political Forum is a live, interactive call-in program designed to connect you directly with your elected officials. Over the next 25 minutes or so, we hope you have an opportunity to learn a bit more about Senator Lightford and her views on some of the most pressing challenges and opportunities facing the state. Above all, this program is also about fostering a strong sense of citizen engagement in Chicago. Your voice is a key component of the program, so we invite your calls and your questions for the Senator. Please join us at 312-738-1060. That's 312-738-1060. Welcome back to Political Forum.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again. What an awesome opportunity to have engagement with the community.
Terrific. I'm sure our viewers want to dig into a lot of the issues that have been in the headlines this week. But for people who may be meeting you for the first time, perhaps you could share a little bit about the 4th District.
Oh, great. I'm Senator Kimberly Lightford, an Assistant Majority Leader. I've been in the Senate for 15 years and grateful to be able to represent the Austin community and Proviso Township. The district, if you were traveling along I-290, I start about Costner, and you ride with me all the way out to the border there, Wolf Road, until the end of the highway. My boundaries north is North Avenue, but it breaks off in bits and pieces. And my south boundary is Roosevelt Road up until you get to about Broadview, and then I expand to LaGrange and LaGrange Park. It's the new district.
Great. And a lot of people steer clear of politics and public service. What motivated you to run for office?
You know, I was invited to. I was asked to run. It was nothing that I ever thought I would do. I actually went to Western Illinois University and I earned a bachelor's degree in communications, public relations. But it was during graduate school. I earned a master's in public administration, and I thought actually I would be on the lobbying side. I was more interested in the groups that were the advocacy groups, that were the motivators behind the scenes. I didn't see myself in that role. But my hometown is Maywood, and my mayor at that time and my state representative and some of the community activists, they suggested that I run for local office. So I started as a trustee in the village of Maywood. Then Earlene Collins is my predecessor. She's now the Cook County Commissioner, and she retired from serving 20 years in the Senate. It was an open opportunity, and they suggested that I run, and luckily for me, I was chosen. And so that's been 15 years now, and I've worked my way through the Illinois Senate to become a member of the leadership team. My passion is education, youth development. I've served on the Senate Education Committee for 15 years, my entire time there, and it's honestly what I love. I focus on financial institutions as well as a lot of consumer right protections and health care for women.
Great. And I know we could dedicate an entire series to all of your activity in and around education, but the issue that's dominated headlines all week has been pension reform. And both the Chicago Tribune and the Chicago Sun-Times endorsed the pension bill that was introduced in Springfield, and Governor Quinn referenced the vote. He said it's the most important fiscal vote lawmakers will ever make. You voted against that measure, and maybe you could educate our viewers about why.
I absolutely did, and I disagree with the governor in that regard, because we're constantly involving in the legislature and trying to meet serious demands for the people. You really never know what your most important will ever be. Every year it's always something that's pressing on the table. This pension issue, when I arrived in the General Assembly 15 years ago, and I would start it with January of 1999, we were funding the pension at 73% when I arrived. So it's never been fully funded since I've been there. It was a 40-year-old problem. By the time we approached 10 years later, 2009, we were only at 38.5% funding the pension system. We had dropped dramatically. So what we began to do over the years is try to come up with ways of how do we begin to make full pension payments. And now we're in a declining economy. We were not receiving federal dollars as we often did. We were in what you call a national meltdown, and a lot of our revenues were not being appropriated. We passed a bill because we were trying to generate revenue from gaming. That was never realized in our budget. We tried to do corporate loopholes. That didn't pass. We did transfer of funds. That didn't pass the House. A measure passed the Senate. It doesn't pass the House. We all know it takes both chambers to get to the governor. What we failed to do is generate new revenue over the years. So as the market was declining, we were not generating revenues to bring in also. I think the only one thing that I can recall that we really did massively a couple years ago when we passed the big jobs bill is where we tried to create a capital bill. It was held up in court for some years. Our bond rating dropped, and nothing significantly came in for additional revenues. Now we have unpaid bills, we have backlogs, our Medicaid system needs to be reformed. There's no new revenue streams that are coming in, and we began to try to come up with what do we do. So we refinanced the pension system. Some of you may remember that. Well, we treated it as if it was a home mortgage. It was refinanced 45 years out. We made our full pension payment system. It lasted a hot second because we couldn't keep up. In 2011, we created a Tier 2 system. Now, this Tier 2 system was so that we didn't get to this point and affect current retirees and future retirees. What we were doing was only looking to create a system for those who were not already employed, who were not a state employee or a state retiree, and we looked to create another system that where the benefits were not as well, you can say they were diminished to some degree for new hires. Well, the Tier 2 system didn't create enough revenue as we needed it to. So we're back at the table last year with another measure where we only address SERVs and SERVs. That passed the Senate, but it didn't get picked up in the House. That would take us to 2012. This year in 2013, President Cullerton started out with Senate Bill 1. We passed that bill to the House. That bill was gutted, sent back over. It failed in our chamber. The bill we sent over to them never got called. Then Senate Bill 2404 came about. And so now this was the bill that there was a lot of inclusion for everyone. I believe that all those that are impacted should be included at the table for negotiations. That bill was an agreed upon bill that passed the Senate. It was never called in the House. That forced us into this conference committee, which created a committee to come up with a new proposal based off of Senate Bill 1 that passed the House and didn't pass the Senate. Yet it didn't include a lot of the provisions that passed the Senate that didn't pass the House in 2404.
I hope our followers, our viewers are following this
trying
journey.
What I'm hoping to accomplish is a summary of letting you know that this isn't something that just started today. That it isn't an issue that was driven just from this year alone, that it was something that I totally walked into 15 years ago that was never fully funded, and it has declined over a period of 10 years, and then we began to try to address it over the past 5 years with little to no success because none of the bills we did pass both chambers except the bill where we created the Tier 2 system. That Tier 2 system didn't generate enough revenue. Now we're back to the drawing board, and we have a proposal that just passed the legislature that I voted no against because it diminished benefits that affect current teachers that are retired. The Illinois Teacher Retirement System, I think, is so unfair for a person who's living on a fixed income, have served decades in their profession, and now all of a sudden we say, not only are we not going to stick with our commitment to you that you've earned and worked for, we're going to diminish your lifestyle right now. So if you're 65, 70, 75, 80-year-old, it doesn't matter. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to reduce your pension benefits, meaning direct funds that comes to your household for your everyday living now. That is what's wrong with this bill, my major problem with it. I recognize that we all have a shared sacrifice. The General Assembly retirement system is changed significantly as well, so it's personal. It affects our current teachers, our retired teachers, all of our state employees, all of our public service workers. And someone has to value public service, and I do. I value public service. I value those who sacrifice and they go to work and they have this expectation of what they will earn at the end of their years of providing service, and it's not available to them. So again, I understand that we all have a shared sacrifice, but we also have to include all of the advocacy groups and make it fair for all of us.
Senator Lightford, let's get some of our callers in on the conversation. Again, you're watching Political Forum. This is a live interactive call-in program. I think we have a caller on the line. Caller, are you there?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, so I have a question because concerning, I know that Chicago city officials have been paying really close attention to what's going on in Springfield. So by passing this pension reform, what does this mean for Chicago taxpayers like myself who aren't state employees? Is this going to have a positive or a negative effect?
It actually doesn't have an impact on you if you are not a part of the 3 retirement systems that it affects. But what the suggestion is that the Chicago Teachers Union and Chicago Public Schools have a different retirement system set aside from the suburban teachers and downstate teachers. In fact, we only pay $11 million into their fund, yet we pay $3 billion into the state retirement system for the suburban teachers and downstate teachers. So our stake in it isn't as large. If you estimate $11 million and $3 billion, you tell me where you think we need to be. But the suggestion is that this be the format, this bill, that the Chicago Teachers Union follow and CPS follows. I don't think that's fair either. I think there should be much more negotiation that takes place because the numbers don't weigh nowhere near equal to what the state input is to put this implication on them. And so if there is some effects that will directly affect Chicago, it will be what comes out of that agreement, which we have not addressed. That should be coming up during the spring session.
I think we have another caller on the line. Caller, are you there?
Hi, I remember I was watching when the pension bills were being passed, but one of the issues that came up before was about providing specific tax breaks to sort of try and keep companies in Illinois. If you agree with doing that, why is that necessary? Or if you disagree with it, I'd be just kind of interested in knowing how you feel about it.
Well, I feel 2 ways. We have recently just passed about 3 or 4 measures just yesterday as well that created some additional tax breaks for companies that had all unique different situations. There's really no one-size-fit-all, and we don't have a policy right now that is a qualifier, which is something that we're looking to work towards in the spring session. The Chairman of Revenue, Senator Hutchinson, will be putting together an opportunity for us to come up with a qualifier for that industry. However, I'll give you an example. Office Max and Office Depot, they just did a merger. Right now, Office Depot is headquartered in Naperville, Illinois. Office Max is headquartered in Florida. So right now, Florida has opportunities to bring Office Depot there, which means we would lose all of our employees that are out at our location. Thousands of employees will be laid off because the headquarters were shipped to Florida. What we're trying to do is be competitive with Florida and offer a package where the headquarters will remain in Naperville and that extra additional staff will come to Illinois. And those middle management jobs that they have told me in committee during testimony that would range between $72,000 and $80,000 a year, we want to keep those jobs here in Illinois, and they're looking to add on additional employment opportunities. And it was a couple hundred of jobs. I can't tell you the direct number, but it's something that is definitely something to consider keeping here. That is the reason why I support it. An example would be because when we're trying to increase our employment opportunities, we don't want to lose what's already here. I don't like the fact that businesses who make large profit margins are able to come to the state and get these tax breaks. But when you're in a catch-22 of working families and people who need to work, and you're trying to keep profitable companies who employ our people, you have to make a decision on what's best. And I think that's a good example of me supporting that initiative to keep those jobs here in Illinois and to keep that industry here.
Senator Lightford is ready for your questions. I think we have another caller on the line. Caller, are you there?
Yes, I am. And what a wide variety of topics. And I have yet another one. How young do you think and why kids should go to school? It seems to me the earlier they get into the school system, the better off they are. And I think that that's something that you support, Senator Lightford.
I totally agree. And thanks for the call, because education is totally my passion. I had no idea the magnitude of learning. But I sponsored a bill which was a school compulsory age bill to lower our age in Illinois. What we've done over the past 10 years is focus on early childhood education and put a whole lot more where we need to get kids learning by the age of 3. But what we had not done is looked at our own state law that says your child doesn't have to be in school until they're 7 years old. It made no sense. So in other words, we say have them in preschool for third and fourth at ages 3 and 4, and then go home until they're 7. It makes no sense. I attempted to lower that age to 5 because I believe all kids should be in kindergarten, and I support full-day kindergarten. I tried to lower that. Some of my Republican colleagues, in fact, the entire Republican caucus, did not want to support reducing the age to 5. Their chairman of education, which is their minority spokesperson, shared with me that they would support the age being lowered to 6. They had some people tell them that perhaps their kids aren't ready at 5. They might want to keep them home an additional year. Could they, the bill reduce the age to 6? I agreed, and they still didn't vote for the bill. So I should have went for 5. But so right now our state law lowers that number to 6. I think 5 is really where we need to be. And it's my hope that parents know the importance of getting their kids to school as early as possible. And it's my responsibility to try to fund as many programs that will allow kids the opportunity to begin to learn as early as possible.
Great. Let's stay on education and let's talk education funding. Illinois ranks 50th when it comes to investment in public education. You've played a very active and vocal role around funding for education and are a member of a newly formed advisory committee to explore this issue. Talk to our viewers a little bit about education funding in Illinois.
Well, if there is one subject that really gets my skin just crawling under my skin, is the fact that we don't fund our schools. I am so embarrassed being 50th. That is a disgrace. We have a responsibility to educate our children, period. There's no other way to look at it. And every single year, this is my same fight. The Education Fund Advisory Board, EFAB, Governor Ryan created this committee. They set forth recommendations on what the foundation level should be. We are lagging behind that number significantly. We're funding our kids at $61.19 per pupil. According to EFAB recommendations, we should be around the 9,000 number. And I don't have that exact number, but just off the top of my head, we're about $3,000 per pupil in spending less than where we should be. In fact, we are now prorating our budget to the school districts. So the school districts anticipate a certain amount of money based on per pupil, based on if they are eligible for the poverty grant, if they receive categoricals, how much they receive in special education. There's quite a few other lines where money flow into the school district and creates this number, including transportation dollars. So with that number, we're finding ourselves so far behind, and then we say, well, we can only give you 89% of that number instead of the 100% that you need. So school districts aren't even able to properly prepare because our budget is the end of May 31st. You wake up June 1st and you find out, we have less than what we anticipated. So we have to do what? Lay off teachers, lay off, administration, increase class size, and these classrooms are busting at the seams. They can't take any more children in one particular classroom. And so our new committee has been charged with the task of looking at our formula. That is so important, our formula, because we have a structural problem in how we fund our schools. And if we don't get to the root of it, then we'll just keep adding money and fighting over the little bit of resources left to try to increase the foundation line. So right now we are actually taking a look at the full gamut, the whole picture of every single education dollar, how it's determined, where it's going to go, how it impacts local property taxes, how it impacts property taxes for wealthier school districts. What our average per pupil spending across the state is a little bit over $12,000. How can we get kids who are in poverty-stricken areas, low property tax values, up to that number, to that average? If we could at least start from there. Some kids are being funded at $19,000, $20,000 a year, yet you have some kids that's functioning off this $6,119, and they're only 89% of that number.
You're watching Political Forum. This is a live interactive call-in program. We invite you to flex your activism muscles by calling in with your question for State Senator Kimberly Lightford. I think we have another caller on the line. Caller, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you for taking my question. Has there been any progress with increasing the minimum wage?
Oh, gosh, you're touching on all my soft spots. This is awesome. Minimum wage is a bill that I filed again last year. And a little history. The first minimum wage increase in 2006, we went from $5.15 to $8.50 over a period of time. We went up that dollar to $6.15, and then it went up 50 cents or a quarter every year. Then it maxed out. Then we came back and did our second minimum wage increase, and then that took us to $8.50, which we landed on, or $8.25. $8.25. We landed on $8.25 this January. My goal was to come at it again and say, okay, we need to be at least the real value of minimum wage. Well, minimum wage first was set in federal level. If we would have kept up with that amount, where would we be? The true value of the minimum wage. We would be around $11 and some odd change. I'd be happy with 10 for people. From 8.25 to 10 is where I'm going, what I'm trying to push. I'm falling short of 30 votes in the Senate. I was up to about 28, but the House didn't give me any indication that they will call the bill, that they were going to entertain it. I'm hoping now that, I can't say we resolved the pension issue because that bill will go to court and be held up. So we really haven't. We're playing games with people at this point. But I'm hoping that we can begin to entertain that again in spring session.
Terrific. We'd like to thank our guest, Senator Kimberly Lightford. We'd like to thank you for tuning in. In order for our democracy to thrive, we need an informed and engaged citizenry. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for calling in. And we invite you to join us next week for the next edition of Political Forum. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.